afternoon, folks. Welcome to WhiteWalkers Craic and Chat. And our friend Dave, how are you?
Hello. How are we?
Not too bad. We've got plenty on the go tonight, Dave. What are we gonna discuss this evening?
Well, let's see. What have we got here? Well, first of all, before we get cracking with the crack here tonight, I want to say tonight's show is brought to us by good friends at Hellbent, Mr. Brewer himself, Mr. Ludick, and co. Kanako Biltong. And if you haven't already noticed, if you catch tonight's BBC Newsline Northern Ireland catch up or on BBC Sport website, there's a lovely little video of Bilsa and Alana. And you know how they've coped with life in Northern Ireland the last couple of years. Well worth a watch, and also it's in association with Auto Door Services. And my good friend Nigel will be able to give you more information on that as we go. Mr. Gilbert already in there. Hi from our ambassador in Madrid. Evening to you, Ian. And absolutely, we're looking forward to round 3 of the Six Nations too. So really, what we're going to do tonight, we're going to look at Ulster's win against Glasgow there last weekend. We'll look forward to this weekend's clash with the Ospreys, and then we'll get into the meaty stuff of the Six Nations. We've got 2 games this weekend. Unfortunately, we've heard that we are responsible for the postponement of the third, but we'll try and clear that one up as we go tonight. But before we get into the rugby, Great Night King, we have some sad news this week, obviously, with the passing of Irish international Gary Halpin. Gary passed away suddenly this week. He had 11 caps for Ireland in his career, and many good moments of rugby, and our best wishes and condolences and our prayers are with his family and friends at this sad time.
Absolutely. Gary Halpin's reaction to scoring a try against the All Blacks has got to be a legendary moment in Irish rugby history, hasn't it? I mean, goodness me.
Well, to those of us who know well, that double Stone Cold salute is very, very, very been much on the forefront of this last couple of days. Certainly, it's one of them.
Absolutely, it is. As I tell you, absolutely, Joe. It's a terrible loss for a man that age. My goodness, that guy's a year younger than I am. It's frightening. I was reminded of a story by thanks to Kyle Patterson that he once said he sidestepped John Lomu twice in a game against the All Blacks. Sadly, John Lomu had the ball on both occasions, however, so he had a sense of humor, didn't he?
Absolutely.
But we hate to lose our players, we hate to lose our heroes.
Well, let's have a look at where things are at now at the minute. Good news for us Ulster fans, with Ian Henderson signing a fresh 2-year central contract with the IRFU today. That was announced earlier, and it was I think we sort of knew it was half coming, but it was always nice to see it in black and white. That the captain is going to be with us for another couple of years, and then I don't know about you, but with the go ahead and then the postponement of the Six Nations with France, it's been quite the strange couple of 48 hours for sure. I believe it was one COVID positive test that caused the postponement of it. And all in between everything, it seems that the Irish got the blame for it.
I don't see how they can decide that without. I mean, I'd love if it did happen in Ireland. Fine, show us how it happened in Ireland. Don't just say we think we caught it in Ireland. I hark back to the Heineken Cup, and there was lots of COVID cases, and a lot of them came out of France at that time. And that caused a whole uproar. And I think we're talking about a global pandemic and a virus here that doesn't respect borders or nationalities. It's a bit disingenuous, frankly, to say it's your fault we caught that. I'm uncomfortable with that kind of rhetoric, frankly. But look, it is what it is, and the game's going to have to be rescheduled.
Absolutely. And speaking of transport and buses, bit of a strange, press conference with the Irish, this last couple of days. Um, never mind doing the crab. I think Mike was trying to show us the cat walk, with the way that they've sort of pushed the responsibility of decision making. It's not our fault; it's the players' fault, and the players aren't doing what we are telling them to do. It's sort of
very worrying, Dave, because it's not something you see coaches doing at any professional level generally, and usually, you find that if you look at any other sports where we've seen this happen, and I refer back to our favorite sport, Wendy balls, I call it. We see this quite often in that sport where the coach starts to blame the players or the manager starts to blame the players. And frankly, most of those coaches don't last long after that, because it's either a sign they've lost the changing room, they've lost influence on the players, or something's broke down between the coaching team and the playing staff. I mean, the buck stops at the top. It's the way it works in professional sport and most professional setups. It's the guy at the top who will be asked the questions to sit there and say, it's his fault, it's his fault. Now, don't get me wrong. Players can have bad games. Players can not go with the plan, whatever. But even in those situations, you don't come out in a press conference and say that. You just don't play them next time. You take them aside, you speak to them and say, you haven't played well. You're not in the team next week. So I was very disappointed in Mike Catt for saying that, because straight away he was deflecting any blame off himself. And I'm sorry, Mr. Catt, but when you see an attack that's crabbing from side to side, side to side, and going backwards quite often, and then you don't, nothing changes. And another thing about that is that under Joe Schmidt, he was so detailed in how he ran the team. I mean, basically, I remember, I can't remember who the player was. It might have been actually Andrew Trimble, but said that you do not deviate. If you try something and it works, that's okay. But if you try something and it doesn't work, and Mr. Schmidt hadn't sanctioned it, you didn't play next game. That was it. End of story. Is that mindset still there with the players? Has it changed, but it's not been properly communicated to the players to allow them to do what they want? I don't know, but it's a strange thing for a coach to do.
Well, Nigel, I think, and it's a conversation I've had with a few people over the last couple of days in some of the forums. And I often say, you have to remember that Andy Farrell was a coach within the Schmidt setup, and obviously a lot of the players will have been, used to playing in the Schmidt style, and then when Farrell's took over and is trying to sort of put his own mark on that, first of all, you have to unpick, what the players have learned under Joe, and then you have to try and adjust to where things are at under Andy. And what you find is that the decision-making tree is probably going to be more evolutionary rather than a revolution. We're always calling for young players. We're always calling for a certain number of from Ulster.
That's a different argument. That's a different argument again. Yeah. My attitude is this. Everyone's going on, Billy Burns cost us this game. He cost us that game. James Lowe can't. And I've had some fun with that. James Lowe can't tackle. I've been winding people up on some of the forums for a week about this, but it is banter and it's crack. However, having said that, I don't think he defends well. However, we can't blame one player for those games. We cannot blame one player in those. We can blame one player for individual.
If it's an individual error, yes, but
errors, but we can't blame them for the game. And the plan of attack from Ireland, it hasn't changed. There's no involvement in it. And this started actually back when we lost that game heavily to England in Dublin, and Joe was still coach. Now Joe had announced he was leaving, and then he had family illness problems, and he wasn't around as much. So let's be honest. Farrell would have had his hands on the team quite a lot then. Mm-hmm. And he'd be working to orders, but he's the man on the spot again. Ireland have not progressed since that game in Dublin. Yeah. And we took two subsequent heavy hammerings from England. We had other teams, including Italy, having a right go at us because they could see the weaknesses in our attack. We were easy to defend against, and they were attacking us on the wings, attacking us in the back three. That hasn't changed. We're in 2021, and that hasn't changed. So my question to Chris Farrell would be, why hasn't that changed? And I'm sorry, but blaming the players is not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what have you told them to do? What have you told them to do differently? Have you told them they've got license to do what they want? Have you told them they've got license to pray more freely? Don't say it's their fault. They're not doing what we want. I'm wanting to think more. No.
Yeah,
No.
well, certainly I can see here Joe Lyons. Joe, hi, welcome onto the show. Joe says 100% no manager should, in public, keep it for the four walls. Very poor management. Oh yeah, can we not blame Stockdale? No.
I made a joke to somebody earlier on, Dave. I said somebody actually did on forums suggest that Robert Balogun would be a really good choice on the wing for Ireland. But that struck me he can tackle, and that wouldn't be a good call, would it? Sorry, I did it. It's
chat about Robert in about 5 minutes' time. But let's move it right on. Let's look at Glasgow. Definitely, I would say to use the Wendy Ball term, a game of two. I wouldn't say halves, but certainly two periods. The first 35 minutes, it was quite scrappy stuff, really. There wasn't really much you could sort of shout about, and then just before halftime, things turn on their head. And of course, we have to. I think unanimously, I think everybody was giving the man of match to Mr. Lowry for some absolutely fantastic footwork and the build up to that try really put the icing on the cake, and it seemed to have made most of social media this week. Everywhere from the Pro 14 right through to even Ulster's opponents in the night, Glasgow were quite impressed with it as well.
I think there were two teams that hadn't played for quite a while, and it showed in the first half. Although I think that's the best. I mean, Glasgow really came at us in that game. They really did. They're not easy to beat at home. They've had a terrible season, I know, but I didn't think they were that bad actually last Friday. And they kept us honest right through that game. It took a couple of magic moments really to open Glasgow up, because their defence certainly wasn't lacking. And Mike Lowry was involved in both of them, in fact. But the first try, that was just sublime play, offload and passing. I mean, sucking in defenders, committing defenders, going through. I had everything in it, that track, loved it. Little Larry at the end, turning on the afterburners and leaving a poor fella to attempt to tackle 6 feet behind him, which was quite funny at the time, but wouldn't be a view of the one trying to tackle him. Second try, I thought Madigan was very influential in that, just carrying that really, it's what sets the momentum off. In fact, Madigan was the one in the first, he intercepted, coming back and intercepted the ball coming back, and you need little things like that to break a game down. And then spring, obviously, I'd love to see Ulster spring those kind of attacks a lot more, but they were very rusty looking in the first half, as were Glasgow. But certainly, I think both teams played much better in the second half. It was a much better game in the second half.
Oh, the quality of that second half, certainly is pretty much some of the best play I've seen in quite a while in Pro 14 games. Breaks and no breaks. There's Glasgow always have been very tough in defence. I'll ratio on that. They're always very hard to break down, and Lowry just managed to unpick the locks. Just I don't think. I think even Brian O'Driscoll was impressed with some of the play on there, and especially Cooney's play on that as well, and especially
yes. Interesting comment from Bob, wasn't it?
When O'Driscoll's questioning why Cooney's not playing in the Irish setup, I think it's time to sort of sit up and take notice.
Look, I don't know what the reason is, and we're never going to hear it properly, and we'll get the usual media sound bites and everybody defending their own player and stuff like that, because that's what we get in Irish rugby, and probably that goes further afield, frankly. But look, there's something badly wrong between John Cooney and the RFU setup, or the management, or somebody within the management. He will not be playing for Ireland. I think we can just establish that he's not going to be. He now has to decide whether he wants to stay and see his career out at Ulster, or does he want to take a payday abroad. And frankly, we'll talk about briefly as well. I think, actually, if I'm honest with you, Stu Mccluskey's another one. This guy's got more. He's got more camps than caps. And it's got to be, for me. We've got to be at the stage now where this is not benefiting either party. So would they be better releasing him to let him play for Ulster for a while, or would they and bring a young fella in who would benefit from being in the squad, or do they persist with him? He hasn't played a lot of rugby this year, Stu Mccluskey, because of Irish camps. I just think, are we at the stage now? Just stop this and bring somebody new in and let him play for Ulster. Where he can, because somebody said he'd be disappointed to be playing for Ulster tomorrow night. I don't agree with that at all. I think he'd be delighted to play a game of rugby tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think he'd be delighted to get any game time at all.
Yeah.
And, I think it would be. I think it's about time that for all that he's not going to use him. It's just like, look, away you go play, get some game time, and
we'll look at you again. Yeah.
And see where it goes from there. Another one who impressed me was Cormac as a juggler. As he had, at first he was pretty quiet. I think Glasgow managed to shackle him pretty well at the start, but he, you can see flashes of the potential that he was showing during the sevens, and. And as Connor says there, he's back on the bench again tomorrow as well. So, absolutely agree. Definitely, he's got an incredible skill set. I think Dan will be smart enough to let him develop at his own pace and bring him along just right.
I think he is a player, though. I've said it before on some of the forums. He is. I've watched him. Mostly highlights of A games, not live one against Leinster. I actually do think he's a player that can break into the team and stay there. Not play a few games and then be dropped out again for a long time. This is a lad that can actually make his mark on the team, I think. So hopefully he'll get a good run out tomorrow night, and we'll see how he goes.
And I say, as Ian Gilbert says, I agree with Nigel about my hometown's bulldozer.
That's Stu he's talking about, yeah.
Stu, yeah.
Look, we love Stu. I've always said I'd love to see Stu partner with Ringrose, give that a go, see if it can break down defences. But look, at the end of the day, I'm a fan like everybody else, and maybe I can see the benefit of something. People say, how do you drop hand shot? That's a fair point. How do you drop hand shot? But the bottom line is, we can top 9, 10 all we want, but I've got to be honest with you, that 12, 13s that we're putting out there so far are not breaking down defences either. We can put blames either side of them, but they're not. There's just no confidence in them. We're not seeing the best of them in Ireland at the minute, and I'd love to know what it is. But we got to change something. Something's got to change to get it. You can't do the same thing every time and expect the result to change. That's delusion,
Well, let's take a wee look forward now. Let's look at the Ospreys. Now, and we should have the two teams here. Here's the Ospreys lineup. Quite a strong team, I have to admit, considering.
Decent side, yeah. Decent side. Interesting battle of the nines tomorrow.
Yep.
The two nines who aren't being picked, if you like.
Absolutely. And Myler at 10 as well.
Myler's been fantastic for them. What a signing. He came in as a fill-in, didn't he? He had more or less retired and he was stepping back, but he's a bloody good player for them. Gregor is making a very valid point there. They didn't play well on Saturday. I have to say that game they played last Saturday was a Turgid affair, and if they turn up to Belfast like that tomorrow, it's going to be a hard night for them, I think. But I don't think they will. Looking at that team, I don't think they will.
And we got to be looking at the Ulster squad. Of course, good to see Stockdale and of course they also return to Sean Reedy and Robert Balakoon.
We're getting them back, and I believe Addison's very close to a return as well. So we're getting them back. Yeah, fantastic. That back three, that's and those two lads in centre. That back line. It's a good pack there as well. That's a good pack, but that back line is as good as we can put out potentially with a few changes. It's a frightening back line, that.
I think we could be looking at a double-digit gap, perhaps, maybe.
Look, it depends what Ospreys turn up. If the Ospreys of last week turn up, we're going to put a heavy score on them. But that's not the Ospreys we see every week. So we'll wait and see. But but I think it's an interesting game. Definitely an interesting game in the mix.
And I see we're going to be coming there from from okay, BS Rugby. As an Ospreys fan, Myler, I would say, has been the best signing this season. One of the best free transfers in pre-14 history. I would agree.
Absolutely. What a piece of business that was. He's been great for them. Absolutely great. He's very. I mean, he was a good player. We always knew he was a good player. And as I understand, he came in on a free because he left his last club, hadn't he? And came in basically, I think, to fill in a spot, really, a cover injury, I believe, wasn't it? And he signed on now, so fantastic.
And Gregor Galway, well, good to hear from you, buddy. Good to see Robert Bellacombe back and Reedy and Stockdale. I think we're in for a bit of a treat whenever game time comes around. I think it's going to be, it depends on which Osprey side turns up, but certainly if with Myler playing as he is, I don't know. I think it could be quite a tight affair. I don't think it's going to be as turgid as a blancmange, but I think we're going to get a good dessert out of that one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like, have you seen anything else, Nigel? Coming through, have you spotted anything sort of this week where you think, okay, where did this one come out of? Well, apart from that great cartoon that you've been sharing with the forums recently.
Somebody put that up on the Ulster Rugby Supporters Club, and I couldn't resist it. I had to take it up. What are we still talking Ulster here, or do you want to move on to Ireland?
You know what?
Well, look,
segue in. Here we go. Look at that.
I just thought it was funny, so I thought I'll stick that up. And on one particular forum, it did seem to trigger a few people, but in fairness, the people I know that have a sense of humour took it in the vein it was meant. That's what I was saying.
Well, look, a nice segue for the Ireland one. Keith Ralston. Hi, Keith. Thanks for popping by and watching us. Is it time to draw a line under Stockdale the fullback and keep him on the wing? But Will who? Such a pity. A phenomenal player, but can't stay fit.
I'm gonna say Will Allison hurt his back a year ago now, and from what I can gather, reading articles and reading something, he probably could have done with that back surgery quite a long time ago. I think they tried to bring him through with that back as it was and tried to get it to loosen up, and nothing worked. So he ended up having to get that surgery I think it was September, October, wasn't it? He got that September, something like that. But from what I can see and read and reading between the lines, he probably could have done with that surgery earlier. He's had a bit of an injury history. He reminds me a bit of a backs version of Marcel Coetzee. And sometimes players have to tweak their game to suit their physicality, because he's one of those players that just has a go. He dives into everything, and but the guy, you can't deny the guy's skill. The guy is a class act. Will Allison is a class act, and if we can get him back fit, he'd be like a new signing for us. Absolutely. And he seems to understand other players very quickly, which is what I like about him. We talk about Mccluskey offloads onto the shoulder, etc. We haven't quite seen that with James Hume, because they haven't played that much together. But very, very quickly, Allison picked that up and knew where to be. He's just a smart, experienced player, very skilled, and I hope he stays fit, because he will push his way back into the Ireland setup, in my opinion. But he's got to stay fit, and he's going to have to get quite a few games under his belt, I think, before he gets considered again.
Very good indeed. Well, look, everybody, you're very welcome to the WhiteWalkers chatting Craic with the Night King, Nigel QUIGLEY, and myself, David Topping. And right now, we're going to swing it all the way back round, and we're going to dive into the Six Nations. We've got 2 games to look forward to this weekend, with Ireland, Italy, and a nice tasty clash between England and Wales. So what we'll do, we want to bring our guests in for this one. First of all, we will bring in from 365 Sporting Days, Debs.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, Debs.
I'm pleased to meet you finally. I say you've been watching a few of the previews, but it's good to get chatting proper now. Who else have we got there, Nigel?
Oh, I think we've got Ben, haven't we?
We do indeed.
We do indeed. There he is. Hi, Ben.
Evening, guys. How we doing?
Not too
bad at all, Ben. Thank you. And who else have we got, Nigel?
Oh, we've got Yannick as well. That's right. Oh,
there he is.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Yannick. How are you, mate? How's it going?
Well, thank you. How is everybody?
Oh,
well, it's
doing
almost
great, doing
it's
great.
almost the weekend, mate. It's almost the weekend. And Ulster play tomorrow night, so yeah.
You couldn't ask for better, Ulster and Ireland all in one weekend. Couldn't be better. Well, let's see. Well, where should we start? Let's get the obvious elephant in the room out of the way. Obviously, we learned of the postponement of the Scotland-France game. Obviously, with that blasted COVID getting in the way. There's more ups and downs than an episode of EastEnders with this one. Even just a sort of general comment from everybody. Obviously, thankfully, it's been postponed rather than cancelled. But do you think that's the wise decision, or or the Six Nations sort of bend it around a bit? Perhaps, I don't know. What do you think?
No. Can I just before we go to the guests on this? I mean, I know that refers back to the Autumn Nations Cup, probably some of the Heineken Cup games. We don't want to see games postponed and points handed over. We want to see games played. Mm-hmm. And the Six Nations last time around had to run on because of COVID.
Yeah.
I have no issue with that personally. No issue with that at all.
Mm-hmm. And what about you guys? What do you think, Debs?
I think it's an absolute no-brainer. Yeah, and this idea of giving 28-0 wins to somebody, no, that doesn't work. Yeah. I mean, they've done it differently in Premiership rugby, and the result is we're not having relegation this season. I think it's very unfortunate. I think I'd like them to find out why they've got so many cases. And I think it must be a little bit of a worry for Ireland in a way because they were with them, but it's a no-brainer.
Well, so far so good on COVID cases with Ireland because I believe they introduced quite a heavy testing as a result of that. They had to, obviously with the period it takes for it to show, etc. And so far so good. So it doesn't seem to be an issue as yet in the Irish camp anyway. Yannick, you've got to be disappointed by this, mate.
Indeed, extremely disappointed. Very, very, very disappointed. I was listening to everything today on the radio, on podcasts, on the French rugby and everything, and it's just ridiculous, really. I heard you, David. You mentioned like we was blaming some of the French was blaming the Irish, but I didn't hear anything like that. Fabien Galtier is under tremendous fire right now because apparently he broke the protocol. So he's under a lot of trouble now. The French sport minister asked for an internal investigation. So something will happen, I believe, and rightly so. Very disappointed the game doesn't go on this weekend. Rightly so, it just postponed, so we will play eventually. But, it's a bit, I feel sorry for the Scottish as well. I feel that I think is a French internal problem. And I think we have to be blamed for it. As simple as that, really. I don't, that's it.
Yeah, well, I know that I get uncomfortable with the blame thing when it comes to a pandemic. Nobody intends to pass the virus on to anybody else. But, if protocols were broken, that needs to be looked at, absolutely. And that accusation that French blamed the Irish, if I'm not mistaken, Dave, I think it came from Wales Online, and I'm not really going to comment.
I believe it was picked up by a number of outlets, but certainly, we've heard a few things before, but we'll not mention it here. The way I would look at it personally, I want to see the game played. France are looking for a Grand Slam. Scotland are doing incredibly well. I think they've got one of the they've progressed so far this year. It's been unbelievable, and I very much hope that the game does get played. Yes, it is a worry for Ireland. I will agree because of what's happened, but again, there's been that heavy PCR testing in between, and hopefully that will stay clear for the good of the game. I think there's
another guy in the room here that could answer a question that only two people in this room can answer. I mean, Ben, Wales are another team that could potentially win a Grand Slam. Would you, as a fan, want to see them win it on the back of they got COVID, so you can have 28.5 point win? You wouldn't want that, would you? You want to play the games and win them.
No, absolutely. I think if you look at it from a fan's perspective, from a neutral's perspective, there are 3 teams here that could be negatively affected by this. Look at it from a selfish point of view. Wales wouldn't want to go on to win a Grand Slam off the back of a controversial, if Scotland were awarded a 28-0 victory, I think that Wales would be bitterly disappointed by that, because I think, and we're not counting out chickens before they've hatched yet. If Wales play well enough on Saturday and get a win against England, it would set up nicely for that Grand Slam game out in Paris on the final day. So as a Welsh fan, it has to go ahead. From a French perspective, obviously they're looking for their own Grand Slam. They've got a tough run-in of fixtures now. But again, more than capable of doing so. And Scotland would have been a tough challenge for them, but one they would have relished. And they don't want to take a 28-0 loss against Scotland. But the one that I saw today was they considering the chance of playing the game in the free week next weekend. But if they go ahead and do that, Scotland will be without 10 players who are contracted to French and English clubs. So France would that
not apply to French players as well, though, with the French clubs?
Well, you would think so, but obviously the French players can protect their own players as much as they want. Whereas, you look at the Scottish boys that are in the Premiership, in the English Premiership, they'd have no choice over that. And obviously with the French clubs, they want to protect their own, but at the same time, the players that likes of Finn Russell, they're going to want those playing as much as they can. So I really don't know where I stand on that one, but the biggest thing is that they postponed it, and for me, it's exactly the right choice that they've made.
Yeah, I think if they go for the free again, yeah, absolutely, it's going to wreak havoc on the Scots. Certainly, I would agree. But it's I think now we're going to see where the strength and depth really lies. I think, especially. Hopefully all the players, on the French team will come through eventually. And even if you have to field a slightly weakened team, the French, the quality that's in the French side, even in a second string, certainly would pose problems for any of the international teams at the moment.
Definitely. I mean, even like if you see the squad they could have, I mean, still a strong team, and we'll have a go to any international team, to be honest with you. So it's why it's just frustrating to have that happening now, and because we're full of promises, but still we didn't win anything, and we have to now, and this is it. So yeah, but hopefully things will go back to normal, and it is a thing as well. Apparently in France, the players are very, very annoyed with Galtier, because he's the one who wants really, a big discipline to the squad. Everything has to be perfect. And if he broke the protocol, is a problem there. So, so we don't know what's happened internally with the French team now. I don't know. Hopefully, I think Galtier is strong enough and wise enough, I think, to regroup everybody on this side. And but he is a big problem. He's a big problem. So, but yeah, we have the squad. We have definitely. So that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we will certainly look forward to it when the time comes. Well, look, guys, let's look at England Wales. Absolute tasty contest coming up. Let's look at the Welsh side first of all. Well, not much we can say about that.
We've got to get Ben in and have a chat about that, don't we?
Well, Ben, give us your thoughts on that squad. What do you think?
As a Welsh fan, this is the most excited I've been looking at the Welsh side for some time now. We've got the majority of our first team players fit. We've had to do a little bit of reshuffling, but as is the modern game at the moment, teams have got to adapt. Teams have got to adjust the way they're doing things. But you just look at that backline that the Wales have selected. Josh Adams coming back into the side. He made his mistakes, but rightly so. He is back in that side. Jonathan Davis, people were saying, if he's fit, does he play? He's got 2 Lions tours on the back of his jersey. He has to play in these big games. And And that back three, Liam Williams, Rhys Ammett, and Josh Adams. My gosh, if I was an English player, I'd be dreading what could potentially happen, because especially with the likes of Rhys Ammett, that kid is playing with so much confidence at the moment. I think any side would be nervous playing against him.
Well, absolutely. Well, Rhys Ammett's try against Ireland, just a beautiful sniper special. It was. I have to admit, Rhys Ammett played absolutely out of his skin on that one, and you're right. Back three is going to be very dangerous, and say, looking at the English side, also, I think we're going to come up against some real good defense there. We'll just bring up the squad here for the English. Let's see, Debs, you want to take us through that? What do you think yourself?
2 changes, obviously. What for injury? Mark Wilson coming in, and Jamie George. I don't know whether Jamie wasn't quite right for last week. I'm seeing a 23 that means Eddie Jones wants to win this match, but I'm just a bit uncomfortable with it again. I know I'm being very negative about England, but I would not have Elliot Daly at fullback. Because I don't think that's his best position at all. I think George Ford made a heck of a difference against Italy, but no disrespect to Italy, but that performance was against Italy. They made 18 handling errors even against Italy. They cannot do that against this Welsh team, nor can they kick the ball to that back three. I heard on a podcast on Monday talking about putting pressure on Rhys Ammett. Well, who's to say Rhys Ammett's going to be under that ball? If it's anything like the last time they played in Cardiff, it will be Liam Williams under that ball, who has to be one of the best in the world under a high ball. So I'm not sure. I imagine we're going to see a not incredibly exciting match. We'll see how long Billy Vunipola stays on. He was taken off quite quickly against Italy in the scheme of things. I'd have been in the mood to have Ben Earl starting over Billy. I think that Faletau is in just such fine form at the moment. I'm an admirer of the Welsh team anyway, and their back row have got to be one of the best in the world, I think.
The game against Italy, I mean, I thought England did play better in certain areas, but I thought Italy played a lot better in defence.
Yeah.
But they were very loose with their handling and attack, I thought. So the scoreline didn't. It was really hard to. What could you get from that game, Debs? What could you, as an English fan? I mean, we're going to talk about Ireland soon. That's going to be interesting. But as an English fan, what could you take from that game as a coach or
What could I take? I could take that George Ford made a difference at 10.
Yeah.
Not too much more than that, really, and that they need to keep the ball in hand more. The kick at
yeah.
If they kick away against this Welsh team, well, good luck to them, really, because they'll give it to them back from the speedy back line. I'm very torn on how this is going to go. I mean, I said in an earlier programme that I think England by 5. I think it's going to be a very tight game. I'd have liked to see some changes, but you don't make your changes against Wales in Cardiff, do you?
No, absolutely not.
So
absolutely not.
Coming in from the side again.
That cat knows when the cam's on, doesn't
it? Always.
Oh yeah, penalty coming in from the side.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting competition. This I certainly think it's going to be. I think it had the potential to be the game of the weekend anyway. Certainly there were two big clashes set up, but it really is one I can't call personally. I mean, I look at the two squads, I look at the sort of confidence that Wales have built up, the team they've selected for the weekend. I mean, that's a heck of a team. You say the back three. England seem to be stuttering a little. They don't seem to be full of confidence, and their play is not as flowing as we've seen even in the last year. is that a temporary thing? Is that a permanent thing? It's not a permanent thing, but how long will that last before they gel? Because if England click on Saturday, it could be a different game. We know that. I mean, we've watched what that English team, I'll mention Ireland again, did to us last year, the year before. They clicked, they had their game plan right, and they just took Ireland to pieces because Ireland didn't have a response to their game at all. So if they do that, but will they do that? And this Welsh team are improving all the time as well. That's really one I can't call. I'm just going to sit back, I'll probably have had quite a few beers by then, and and I'm just going to enjoy that game, frankly, because I can't call it.
Well, Ben, Connor's question was about the balance of the Welsh back row. They say Connor says that the unit didn't maybe work so well against Ireland. What are your thoughts? How do you think the back row could be balanced better, or do you think this one's been weighted more towards England in mind?
I think Ben's frozen on us, is he?
I think Ben has frozen on us, perhaps. Let's see. Well, Yannick, like ourselves, we're looking from the outside. What are your thoughts on this tasty clash?
I cannot see England win it. I think Wales will win it. Mm-hmm. I cannot see England stopping Wales. I think they are. That is my thought. If I have a bet to put, I never bet, but if I have a bet to put, I will put Wales. And by 7-10, I think.
Dead space.
I may be wrong.
It's just worth pointing out that England have won 7 of the last 10 matches against Wales, but this is not. England have not fired yet in this competition, have they? Let's be honest. And if we're completely honest, they won 2 trophies last year without firing, didn't they?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. It's not the same England. It's not, and it's not only for the Six Nations. There was luck, in my view, to win the Winter Cup or whatever you call it, actually. And so I cannot say they just don't get it this year, and that's it. And so for me, Wales. I'm afraid.
Well, I see Ben's back with us. Hey, Ben, we had a wee question before you froze up on us. It was from Connor Broomfield, and he asked us, do you have any worries about the balance of the back row? Obviously, very, very good individually, but as a unit, they didn't work so well against Ireland. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You look at the likes of Faletau, and Debs has already pointed out he's come back into fine form. I think at the start of the Autumn Nations Cup he was struggling a little bit, but certainly towards the end in that Italian game, again it was against Italy, but he performed so well and stood out as one of those senior players in the team. I think any team across the Six Nations at the moment would be happy to have a Justin Tipuric in their side, just for the pure workload that the man gets through. But for me, I think in linking into Connor's question, I think the selection of Navidi, we need Navidi. He is going to provide us that big ball carrying element to, hopefully put some pressure on England and start to generate some quicker ball. Is he ready for this just yet? In terms of game time, he's got he pulled in a full shift against Ireland basically after poor old Dan Lydiate went off. But this will be a real test for him. He's out there from the start. He's up against a very strong English back row, with the likes of Wilson, Curry and Vunipola. It'll be interesting. I think we've got the right balance there, but it'd be interesting to see whether that's the back row selection going forward. I'm not too sure whether that's Pivac's selected back row, going forward, but it certainly is a tasty looking back row.
Do you think Pivac would pick, for example, we talked about this in one of the Irish forums before, in Irish podcasts, would he be a coach that picks a horse for a course, or would he be a coach that picks a starting 15 and tends to just stick with that no matter who he's playing?
Well, it's funny enough, I was speaking to a former player of his today, and we were doing a chat with Jonathan Evans, formerly at the Scarlets, and he mentioned that under Pivac, Pivac's got very, very strong opinions of players, and he will tell you there and then why you're not selected, why you're not in the team at the moment, and he'll give you something to go away and work on. I think we've seen the press negatively represent that in terms of like Rhys Webb, told that his pass was too slow. I don't think he would have put it across to him in that way. But I think he'll give Navidi the run out on the weekend. He's playing at 6, which is not his most comfortable position, but I think he will have definitely said to him what he wants him to do during this game. It might not be the Navidi that we're used to seeing, but he would have definitely given him something to work on. But yeah, I'm not too sure at the moment. The Welsh back row has got, and we've talked about this on so many different conversations, the Welsh back row is ridiculous. We could field almost 3 back rows with the players that we've got in Wales at the moment, and they could compete on an international level. But I'm not too sure what the balance is at the moment, what we're looking to work towards. I know Pivac has spoken to a few of those back row options. James Botham is on the bench, and he'll look to come on and change the game at some point. But you got the likes of Shane Lewis-Hughes sat at clubs. You've got Josh McLeod, who's at the Scarlets, who's just recently picked up another injury. But the back row options we've got are so plentiful at the moment. But I think he would have spoken to each of those players and told them what to work on prior to this game on the weekend.
Well, speaking of young Botham, Gregor Gully's just brought up an interesting one. I'm going to fire it out to everybody here. If you've caught the comments, what were your thoughts about what Ian Botham has said about England? Obviously, we can't comment on England's current cricketing ability, but certainly, obviously with his son playing for Wales, what are your thoughts on Ian's comments about England recently?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I think always around Wales-England time, there's always, and it always has been, it was between Gatland and Eddie Jones. And there's always, in the build-up to a Wales-England game, there's always the battle in the media of saying, oh, well, they're doing this and we're not doing this. And it is just a little bit of back and forth. But I think this year it's been quite quiet. So as a Welsh fan that quite enjoys putting my views across on Twitter and all things like that. When that comment came up, I thought, oh, finally, someone's trying to ruffle some feathers here. But yeah, I'm not sure about the comment saying England are not a happy camp. It may be true. You never know at the moment. Things are not really sticking the way England would expect at the moment. But I certainly don't think they're an unhappy camp. At the end of the day, they've still got to win. And should things go certain ways in the tournament, they could still be on to take a championship at the end of the things. But they've still just got to keep doing what they do best, and ignore sort of comments like that, because at the end of the day, it is a former cricketer, and is his opinion really going to affect 23 professional sports people? I doubt it very highly.
I think you're actually right, Ben. I think he probably piped up because nobody has fired a shot as yet in the media, have they? So
it's unbelievably quiet.
Yeah, it's been strange. I think because so much of the attention has been on Scotland and France this week, I think that may have benefited in a way that sort of teams can go about and do what they need to do, because all of the media has been focused on the France and Scotland game. So social media will be social media, but in terms of what the press are putting out at the moment, it was certainly something that. It was a knee-jerk reaction, I think, for some people to go, I can't believe both of them have said that. He played for England.
Well, look, guys, we're gonna move on. We've only got one more match to cover, and of course that's Ireland, Italy. Nigel, do you want to take us through the Ireland squad here as they come up here?
Well, it's Leinster and a few invitational players. Look, I think. It is a very strong Leinster backbone in the side. Obviously, the back line's completely Leinster. There's a few others on the bench and starting, Stander and Byrne and Henderson. I think it's probably pleasing one section of fans an awful lot and 3 others not so much. It strikes me as a guy who wants a bit of cohesion. He's putting a team out that are very familiar with each other, and frankly, he's going for the win. It actually disturbs me a little that there seems to be this feeling amongst the Irish camp that they could maybe go and lose this game. I mean, when's the last time you thought you'd go to Italy and lose when they've come off the back of 240-plus drubbings? But there just doesn't seem to be any confidence in that Irish side at the moment. The skill's there. We know how good they can be. We've seen that most of these players have been involved in wins over other major world powers and world teams. But there's something just not right in the camp at the minute. The bench, very strong. It is a good bench. Herring, who's a normal starter. You've got Porter, who's another starter. Healy. Baird, who's really coming back into sort of the national setup after injury. Conan, who's had a couple of man-of-the-match performances for Leinster. I don't think anybody would argue with him being in the 23. Casey, who a lot of people are very keen to see get out on the park. Burns very much slated wrongly, in my opinion, for the plays that Ireland do. If they'd changed when the other 10s were on, I could understand that. And Earl's probably been stepped back a little. So he has made a few changes for the game. But this is not exactly new blood, is it? This is bringing in a team of people who know each other well, and I need a win. That's all that tells me. I need a win.
Yeah, I think it's for me. It's about, obviously some notable omissions, but obviously, I read an article by none other than our own Rory Best, looking at the attitude in the Irish camp coming up to this game, and he gave an insight into how really fans should be looking at Ireland as a team in transition again, and especially going into the next World Cup cycle. Obviously he's arguing that Farrell should be given more time, to bring the players on into whatever system he wants them to play. Obviously the fans are sort of very, very much railing against that somewhat, but I can also see where Best come from in terms of consistency. Obviously, having a reasonably consistent selection is giving the experienced players time to get used to whatever system is meant to be in place. Obviously, to the point where you can start switching out players again, bring in younger players, and then have the majority of players know what they're doing or know what they're supposed to be doing, at least anyway. But I think at the minute, it's very much still a state of flux between one train of thought and the other, and I think at the minute, I think Italy themselves, and let's have a wee quick look at the Italy squad as well. The Italian squad, it's the boss has got a full squad to pick from, and certainly there are a couple of names there that really stand out. Negri for one, absolutely. He had a fantastic game. Probably one of his better games against England, frankly. Ioane and Garbisi. Garbisi didn't play as well as I thought he would have and should have. I think definitely he had a bad day at the office. Debs, what do you think? Looking at it from the outside, who do you think stands out in terms of the Irish squad and in terms of the Italians? Where do you see it going?
I can't see that Italy are going to beat Ireland. Surely not with the experience that we've got there. I'm pleased to see my uncapped Lion sitting on the bench in Ryan Baird. He won't be an uncapped Lion, will he, if he plays? It's in transition, but we read this week that Johnny Sexton's not going to be around in 2023. So where's the transition there? That doesn't seem to make sense for me. If we, Yannick talking about France, we haven't won anything, so this is it. The World Cup is it for France, I believe, and I don't think it matters if they don't win this Six Nations, and I don't think it necessarily matters if they don't win next year's Six Nations. They're definitely building for the World Cup, and they seem to be the only team in the Northern Hemisphere that are. I think Garbisi, I love Garbisi. I think he's fantastic. I think he would grace most teams, to be honest. And actually, the little scrum half as well. It's a decent little player, isn't he? I wish his name was more Italian, but he's obviously an Italian extraction, isn't he? Hopefully, it's going to be again as a neutral. I hope it's a good game, but I can't see Italy beating Ireland. I really can't.
Yannick, what do you think yourself? Do you think there's a? Do you think obviously in the same mind, Farrell has put that team out to win that match convincingly, or is it just time to try and get some just some well-needed game time.
Yeah. There's no way it would be Thailand. No way. I mean, I cannot see that happen. I think it's going to be easy victory for Ireland. I think a good 30 points. I see. I cannot see Italy even compete against Ireland. No way. I cannot see it. No, I don't know. Not for me. Sorry.
That's all right, Ben. Give us your thoughts. Obviously, you've after the Ireland game. Certainly some of our players certainly were accused maybe a lack of creativity, perhaps. What do you think of the team that Parles put out here? Do you see any extra creativity, or do you think could we see the same again from Ireland?
I think I'm pretty shocked, to be honest, that he hasn't used this game to experiment a little more. Like we've read this week, Sexton, he's not going to be around for the next World Cup. So why are you not giving these players an opportunity to play now? I personally think Ireland would benefit a lot from a dual playmaker system. So potentially starting someone like Burns at 12. I know he's not the ideal fit, but I think Ireland just need that extra dimension. Not so much against us, because I think Ireland, it was very much a case that after the Omani red card, it was just all hands to the pump, and they exploited us even with 14 men on the pitch. I don't know. I know we're on the Ulster show, so I am going to mention it. I am banging my head against the wall. The first thing I look at when I look at an Irish team is who's playing 9 and who's coming off the bench. And every time I look at it, I think, what on earth has Cooney got to do to get into that team? He is single-handedly lighting up the Pro 14 at the moment. He is the best scrum half in the Pro 14 by a country mile. I don't think Jameson Gibson-Parks comes anywhere near him in terms of the Irish setup at the moment. But like you said, it's very much at the moment, it looks like a case his face doesn't fit, or he's upset someone within the camp. But as a Welsh fan, I like to see that Tyburn is doing so well in the Irish setup. That second row partnership for me, controversially, that second row partnership is the Lions second row pairing. You could argue that Itoje comes into that, but I think James Ryan and Ian Henderson, they are two fantastic second rows. And they definitely, the pair of them will go on the Lions tour. And it's all about the build up to those games and whether they can make their way into that test side. But you look at the quality and the experience that Irish team has got, they have to put out a great performance on the weekend. A lot of players are under pressure, but I think they will eventually make it past Italy. But Italy, they're definitely experimenting. I like the fact that they've gone with Kana at 12. It just shows that they've got that extra dimension to their play as well. So I cannot see Ireland losing this game. It's going to be, I agree with Yannick, it's going to be about 30 points, I think, by the end. But yeah, they've definitely, I think they just need to find their identity again. There was a time where Ireland was setting the pace in terms of attacking rugby and how to unlock defences. And all of a sudden, they just seem to have, as you mentioned earlier on, it's a lot of crabbing from side to side at the moment. And there's no real impetus to go forward. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, absolutely. They seem to have just clammed up, and it's a puzzle and a half. And if anybody can solve it, well, answers on a postcard, the usual address, and first one out the hat one's a dodgy prize. Well, look, we're coming to the end of this anyway. But let's have a look here, prediction wise. Let's have a look here. Well, I know we had a few predictions in for. But let's go around the house here. Nigel, what do you think? Give us some predictions for the two games this weekend.
Can't call the Wales England one, but I think it'll be either team within a score. Frankly, the Ireland team, I agree with the two guys. It's got to be a 30-point win, and I think anything less than a 30-point win is going to create more questions than answers, given that he's put out such a strong side and such a familiar side. I mean, it is basically, and I think that's why he's done it. Leinster with a few others thrown in. He wants that continuity, players that know each other, and get that win. But I think if it's less than 30-point win, there'll be more questions than answers.
Debs, What do you think?
I'm going to go England by 5, and I'm going to go Ireland by 10. I'm not going to go for the big gap. I think Italy are going to score tries. They generally always do, don't they? We haven't seen attacking intent from Ireland, have we? So, yeah, I'm going to go Ireland by 10, England by 5.
Okay, Yannick, what do you think?
I'm afraid I'm going to go for Wales by 7 and Ireland by 30 plus for me.
Ireland 30 plus. Woo. Okay, that could be interesting. All right, Ben, give us some predictions.
Firstly, I think Yannick is my new favourite French person. If Wales win by 10 or more points, I think I'd be absolutely delighted. No, I think it's going to be a very cagey affair in Cardiff. The no crowd thing is definitely going to play its impact. But for me, it's going to be Wales by 3. I'm going to go Wales by 3, and I am going to back Ireland by, I'm going to say 25 to 30 points, Ireland.
Ooh, nicely spread there. And for myself, I think England by 3, and it's going to be tighter than I have it. And Ireland, I think will go. I'm going to go for. I'm not thoroughly convinced. I'm going to go slightly less. I'm going to go for about a 15 to 20 point margin on this one. I don't know. There's just something about it which doesn't sit well. And considering I don't want to see too many more crustaceans going and any crustacean jokes playing about here, but certainly I think with the way things have been going, I think it's going to be about 15 to 20. Well, look, guys, it's going to be interesting to see how this turns out. Do you think who do you think any winners are going to come out of it that will, or do you think that the competition's changed since we started out on this? Do you think we're still going to have a French Grand Slam, or where do you think it's going to go?
I think Keith these days, some of that honey he's been driving about, that wasn't a very sweet comment, was it? Well, we're not going to know the Grand Slam results, are we, until the last game is played, because it could end up being that game. It could very well end up being that game. Oh, well, it now won't be the last game, will it? We're talking about doing the Scotland game in June, so Wales are going to play their games. They could end up playing. Well, I suppose they could end up playing France, and whoever wins that's going to be sitting waiting on the result. We could end up not knowing until that day in June who wins it. But it is what it is. It's the times we live in. I think it's still between 3 teams at the minute. I think certainly France and Wales are in the driving seat. It's in their own destinies. I think if Wales win on Saturday, they're in the driving seat. And that's probably as much because of the cancellation, this whole thing with the French-Scotland game. It takes its toll, I think. It's been an absolute merry-go-round, this. However, you cannot write the French off. If England win on Saturday, I think they're back in it. It's between those 3, with the 2 non-defeated teams leading the way at the minute. Sadly, we are fighting, I think, for 4th place at the minute. Stranger things have happened, but it would need an absolute 180-degree turnaround by Ireland's attack to get anything out of this tournament beyond the Italian game. So yeah, it's a great tournament that way. It's a pity about the Scotland game because it was setting itself up for potentially a superb last day with 2 or 3 teams still in the running. It's kind of ruined it, but what can we do? It's the situation the whole world's in, isn't it?
Absolutely. Anybody else want to come in on that? Ed, do you think things have changed, or do you think it's going to be that 2-3 horse race that Nigel's talking about?
Yeah, I've got to say that I think for Wales, their destiny's in their own hands. I think Wales have got to look at it, the thing that they're 3 games away from a Grand Slam regardless. If that game does go ahead on the final weekend, given that we beat England Saturday, we managed to beat Italy. We've got to go away to Italy, which is never a great place to go. But if we can get that win on that last day in Paris, it takes, everything out of it doesn't matter when the Scotland-France game is played then, because Wales would have beaten everyone. The chances of that happening, I'm not going to put any money on it at the moment. I'm still waiting to see how the boys come out on Saturday and how Wales come into it firing. But for me, I've got my reservations. I still think this is France's tournament to lose.
All right.
Debs?
Yeah, I went with France at the beginning, and I think this will.
I hope that doesn't mean we're going to get another 40 days of winter there, Joe.
I think lost my train of thought there completely.
You went with France before,
yeah. France is. Wales are renowned for having a dreadful season and then winning the thing, aren't they? So it wouldn't surprise me if they did it. But with John, I think it's a 3-horse race, and I think this will have unsettled France, sadly.
Yannick, what do you think? What do you think, sir?
I think he's. I will say France, but I think Wales can have a good go as well. All depends what. I think it's France beat England in Twickenham for the Grand Slam.
Well, look, guys. Well, thank you very much for all of this, guys. And obviously now this weekend we have a Gogglebud, another match watch, and it will be the England Wales game. There's a preview of that tomorrow afternoon, coming up around 4:30. But also, our next show is the return of the Lekker Lounge, and that will be at 7 p.m. GMT. And basically, with all the announcements coming through about the World Cup, obviously it's bringing a special edition of the Lekker Lounge about the Lions tour to South Africa, or maybe not. We just don't know. At this rate, it could even be Australia.
If I see another Lions team, I'm going to smash my screen. So we don't even know we've got a tournament yet.
But obviously in the middle of that, obviously we will have another Gogglebud at the weekend, and certainly I, for one, like Nigel, I will be setting up with the beers and enjoying it very much. Well, look, thank you very much, Debs. Thank you, Yannick, Ben. Absolutely fantastic to get chatting with you. Night King, a pleasure as always.
Guys. Yes, Dave. Cheers, mate.
And this has been another episode of the WhiteWalkers Chat and Craic. And all I want to do is wish you all a very good evening. Take care, folks.